Welcome to the third unit in production. The first one was on the concept of supply and some of the basic elements relating to production. The second presentation was on the law of diminishing marginal utility. We shall now move on to another important law in production known as the law of variable proportion. We can take F. Edgeworth's idea of 1911 to know how to make a table in the production studies. So he made a table, he made a hypothetical table, and land was assumed as a fixed input. Even today, when we teach the theory of production, we use the same elements that Edgeworth had used in 1911. So you can see how these old ideas still hold value. In the first column and the second column, he called it as labor and the tools. Tools here could be capital or it could be the land as the input with corresponding level of total crops. So the total labor and tool that is used and what is the total crops that can come by with it. Third one, he used the idea of marginal product of the variable input, which is the same thing what we just saw in the law of diminishing marginal return. So there this idea was used, and it was used later by Edgeworth to call what was called as the marginal product. Then the fourth one is the average product of the variable input. So this is something new that he has added here, because we don't find that in the writings of the diminishing marginal return. Here we find that the concept of average return is also there. And finally, the final column is that of the total product. So this table demonstrates the relationship between total, marginal, and average product. So these are the three terms. Even today, we need to learn these three terms if we want to understand the theory of costs, which is so important when we actually begin to understand productions and decisions relating to production. So we can also try and understand what was Alfred Marshall's idea about the law of variable returns. So Alfred Marshall was a believer in the ideas of the classical school, but he's also developed it much later again, called the neoclassical economist. So what was Alfred Marshall's idea, where he has given emphasis on an old idea, but in a new way he has explained it. An increase in the capital and labor when applied to the cultivation of land causes in general a less than proportionate increase in the amount of product raised, unless it happens to coincide with improvements made in the art of agriculture. So essentially this is a statement from his book, and it says that if we use more and more inputs on fixed factor, then the output will reduce, but it can also increase, the output can also increase if there are technological changes that can happen. Now we shall study this whole law of variable proportions without technical change. PaulSamuelson also much later writes this way: an increase in some inputs relative to other fixed inputs. So some inputs are variable and other inputs are taken as fixed. It will, with a given state of technology, the output will cause the output to increase. But after a point, this output cannot continue to increase, and from there on, any additional input that we give on a fixed input will actually become less and less as returns. So this is what PaulSamuelson had to explain to the law. Now you may wonder, what is the same thing that I have explained in the law of diminishing marginal return is what I'm explaining it here. Now let us see why we use this statement again. Now, in the theory of production, there are some important concepts that you will learn, and these concepts will be useful to you as long as you study microeconomics and industrial economics, or labor economics, or environmental economics. Whichever studies uses microeconomics as a foundation, you will find that these concepts are very useful. So I'm just highlighting this concept to you because I've started the unit on production. You may come across these chapters or topics later, answer when in each of the subject, but you certainly must know that the theory of production contributes a great deal to understanding the many decisions that are taken by economists or by firms or by individuals. So marginal productivity factors of production. So we will now learn in course of time what is the marginal productivity of factors of production. There are four factors. So what happens and how much you added to them. So what is the output that you get from these additional factors? Marginal rate of substitution. So at the point that when you want to substitute, at which level will the substitution take place, and what is the concept of elasticity of substitution, as much as what is called as factor intensity. Then you also have another concept as efficiency in production, and also returns to scale. These are some of the very important concepts that arise in production, besides of course the theory of costs. So once you do these terms, or you understand these terms, you will realize that you can understand the production processes that we explain in microeconomics of the firm maybe later. Now, this law of variable proportion is a restatement of the law of diminishing. That is how it is presented. And it was explained, the older law, that's the law of diminishing return, was explained in the context of agriculture. But it was observed that it is not only to agriculture. This law of diminishing returns is applicable to all production processes, or it has universal application. So once it had universal application, there was more intense studies on that particular idea, and then it was called as the law of variable proportion. It is also called the law of proportionality. So when the number of one factor is increased or decreased and other factors are kept constant, the proportion between the factor is also altered. The way in which these factors are related to each other will also alter. Now, let's start with assumptions here. One of the assumptions that we make is some factor units are used in fixed quantity together with some variable inputs. In this particular study, we will use land as the fixed unit. And the state of technology remains unchanged, because we understood that if the technology of production undergoes a change, then the marginal productivity of the factor can also undergo change. And the law is based on the possibility of varying the proportion. So the way in which we want to combine these factors can also be changed, and they can be combined in different ways according to the need, and then also we can see how the total output will be altered. This table is an important one. You can understand the three stages of production, and also you have the concept of total cost, total product, average product, and marginal product. Then you have labor as the additional variable input, and land as the fixed input. I have put them in colors so that you can understand the three different stages of production. In the first case, you can see the 10 acres of land with one labor produces total output of 20, average output of 20, and of course marginal product is not there, but I have written it 20. So the second unit is 2, 50, 25 and 30, and thus the production, you can see how the number of your laborers have increased, and because of the increase in the number of laborers, your total product is also constantly increased. And then you can see average product. What is average product? Average product is the total product divided by the variable unit. So if you take 140 at the fifth unit, 5 laborers are there, and 140 kilo is the output that is available from that land. So 140 divided by 5 gives you 28. So like that, each of those total output divided by the number of laborers who are used for that particular sequence, then you will get what is called as the average product. We also get the marginal product. What is a marginal product? What is the additions made to the total product by the one more additional unit of labor that has been employed? In which case, total product has increased from 20 to 50. In that case, 50 minus 20 is 30. You can ignore the first marginal product. It can be left dash also. Then the third unit, you can see 90 minus 50. So 90 minus 50 is 40. Then when the fourth laborer is employed, 120 minus 90 is the marginal product at 30, and so. But then when it reaches a seventh unit, we find, unlike the law of diminishing marginal return where they did not talk about a negative number, here we are now getting the maximum as 0. And when that means when the seventh laborer is employed in that piece of land, which is 10 acres, we don't get any addition made from that additional labor, in which case the product that the contribution by that seventh laborer is 0. And if after that stage, if we employ one more laborer and we get eighth laborer, you will get actually a negative value. So that negative value is minus 10. So actually the total product will start decreasing if we add more laborers at this stage. Now the first stage is known as the stage of production, where the firm can continue here. Marginal product is greater than the average product, and at one point the average product will be equal to the marginal product. So marginal product, you can see it has increased to maximum of 30, and then it has come to 30. Sorry, it has increased to 40, and then it has come back to 30. Now there's a second stage which is called where the decisions have to be taken. At this stage, the marginal productivity reaches 0, and when the marginal productivity reaches 0, that is the point where which total productivity is at the maximum. So you can see 150 as a total product, but the marginal product is 0. And thereafter what you find is the marginal product is less than 0, in which case it becomes negative, because now you're finding it as minus 10. I hope you have understood the table very carefully. The number of acres of land on one hand, then the number of laborers you have got. Each time we are adding up one laborer, we have total product, which is when one more person is employing, how the total output of the farm is increasing. Then we talk about average product. Total product divided by the number of laborers employed is called as average product. That also continuously that increases up to a time, then it starts diminishing, but it never becomes negative. So it will get a lower value, but it doesn't become negative. Then the fifth column is marginal product. Marginal product is what is the addition made by that additional employer to the total product, which you saw that it increases up to a point, and thereafter it starts diminishing. After diminishing, it reaches a point 0. When it is at 0, then the total product is at maximum, and thereafter if we employ additional labor, there the output will actually start diminishing. In the sense, it becomes a negative value. So total product actually starts decreasing. So I had used an Excel sheet, and I have just plotted it to show you how this happens. The marginal product is the green curve, and the red one is the average product. Total product is the one that is below that. Now what will you find? You will find that the average product reaches a maximum of 40, for 30, then 20, and then it rises to reaches 0. So it continuously shows an upward slope, but then after some point the marginal product will become 0. When it reaches 0, it will actually cut the average product at its peak point. So that means the average product is greater than the marginal product is greater than the average product till one time. After that, if you look into the table, you will find that the marginal product is actually lower than the average product. You can see in the diagram itself. Now, yeah, you can see that the marginal product has become lower than the average product. 20 and 28, then 10 and 25, 0 and 23. So the average product is continuously decreasing, but marginal product has decreased so fast that it becomes lower than the average product. That is what you can see it in the diagram. I will show you another diagram, but this one I just plotted the numbers on an Excel sheet. So this is how the marginal product and total product will behave. So marginal product has reached its peak of 40. After reaching its peak, you can find there's a gradual decline of that. It cuts the average product at 0.7, and then it is 0, and after that it becomes negative. It goes as negative as minus 10. So what is an average product? As I've already explained to you, average product is the output per worker who is employed. It is calculated by dividing total output by the number of laborers employed. Then it measures the productivity of labor. On an average, how much does each labor unit provide? That is what is known as the average product. And it begins to fall. Of course, it begins to fall when more and more labor is employed. Marginal product is, we have observed, it is the changes in the total product when one more additional unit of labor is employed. And this is by 1 unit. If you have changed the labor input, then how much will the variable factor of that variable factor, how much will it show in terms of output? It increases initially, but then, as I told you, it reaches a peak and then starts diminishing. Now, there are 3 stages of production. That is what we had written earlier. The 3 stages of production. The first stage, the total, marginal, and average product increases. All the 3 are increasing together, and with increasing doses of the labor, with the fixed capital, all these 3 start showing up bigger numbers. And both an average and marginal product increases up to a point and then begin to decrease. So till the time it is rising, we'll call it as the first stage. And the proportion of at this stage, what has happened is there is an appropriate number of combination of the land and labor, and that is why it is increasing. Otherwise, if the number of laborers were less, the land would have been underutilized or less utilized. So at this stage now, the labor and the land and the number of laborers and the land is just enough, and that is the reason that the total output is increasing, the average product is also increasing, and the margin product is increasing. Then we come to the second stage. Second stage starts when the first stage ends. That is at the point where the average product is equal to the marginal product. So there is a point, I said, when the marginal product cuts the average product from top. At that stage begins our a second stage. This needs to be edited. Yeah, second stage starts from where the first stage ends, where average product is equal to marginal product. After that, both average and marginal product starts diminishing. Marginal product starts falling faster than the average product. So, but the total product continues to rise at this stage also, but the total product will rise only at a diminishing rate. And here at this stage, what happens is the marginal product will become 0 and average product will never become a 0 or negative. So you are finding the second stage. This is a very important stage in the study of the factors of production. We can see how you want to that. Now the third stage is when the 0 ends, and then what is left over is called the third stage. Third stage, marginal product becomes a negative. Total products will begin to fall, and average product is still positive, but it is falling. At this stage, if we add any additional unit of labor, it will not increase the marginal product. The marginal product will only become negative and it will continue to fall. So this is the diagram that you can see instead of the one that I showed you with actual numbers and an Excel sheet here. This is how typically a graph is, a diagram is drawn in economics. So you can see this. So the total productivity curve is continuously rising. You can see it has reached its maximum at point P, and that point, what has happened is, the point is when the marginal product is cutting the average product from the top. So till that time, it is called the first stage. In between that little space is called the that gap is the second stage of production. In that stage, it is going to become a 0. The marginal product is going to become a 0 there. And thereafter, when the marginal product has to become 0, you can see that the total product has reached its maximum at the point Q. Thereafter, you can see the total product is falling, and here your marginal product has become negative, though the average product continues to fall. You can also write it this way. the relationship between what happens to these variables during the 3 periods. One is a period, stage 1, what happens to total product, what happens to total product in the stage 2 and stage 3, and how does marginal product behave in stage 1, 2 and 3, and how does average product behave in stage 1, 2 and 3. In stage 1, total product is well presented, so I thought it will be useful for you from your exam purposes. So total product is stage 1. First increases at an increasing rate and then at a diminishing rate. The total product becomes in second stage, continues to increase at a diminishing rate and reaches a maximum. When it is the third stage, then the total product starts diminishing. Let's look at marginal product. What happens? Marginal products increases in the beginning, reaches a maximum and then begins to decrease. In the second stage, it continues to diminish. The marginal product continues to diminish but also becomes a zero. And the third stage is it becomes negative. Look at the average product. Average product continues to increase in the beginning stages, but then it becomes equal to the marginal product at stage 2, and thereafter, though the marginal product have started becoming negative, average product does not become negative, it just continues to diminish. Now, how do production decisions get taken? So no rational producer will stop production at stage 1, because that means there is more possibility of producing there. The factors are still not utilized fully. Therefore, they will wait for it to pass that stage. So first stage is usually crossed. Then they reach the second stage. Then the second stage is the best stage of production because you're getting the maximum return of total product in the second stage. The problem is with the third stage, the firm will, no logical producer will go to the third stage, because at third stage, the marginal product, the additional labor, if we employ one more laborer, that laborer is not contributing anything to production. It is getting negative returns, and therefore the firm will stop producing at the third stage. The problem is, how do they identify exactly that stage when the labor is not contributing or not in terms of general observation? And therefore, the cost can help this kind of a study further later. So this law of variable proportion. The next one we shall look into returns to scale. Now, returns to scale is another theory that will be very important in the study of production itself. Please share it with your friends and utilize it for your learning purposes as well as for your exam purposes. Thank you.